Welcome, friends, fans, to MyStartup.Live. This is the debut show. We're here at the Applebox Network in sunny Southern California. And for the debut show, I have a special guest for you. He is my friend, Pete Wong from Yummi. Pete?
Hey, Kevin.
Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's good to be here.
So Pete is the founder of a company called Yummi, and we're going to learn about his new app later on in the show. But this show is about learning from CEOs and founders of startups. So I'd like to start first by kind of learning a little bit about Pete and his background. So first off, I guess you live in Southern California.
That's right. So I guess I'm a yes, I live here. I grew up here, and I spent the last. I guess I wasn't born here. I came here from Vietnam.
Okay.
Like most American, I'm an immigrant, and I've been living here for the last 20 years, and growing up in Glendale, which is not too far from LA. Yeah.
So, but I know that you have an interesting story about how you kind of came to moving from Vietnam to the United States, and this is a great story, and I'd really love to have you share it. How did you get stateside? Sure.
So as I was mentioning, we came here when I was around 7, back in 1997, 1980, and it was during the war. We left. My parents, escape, if you will, the communism in Vietnam, and we went to Hong Kong, and then we ended up in the U.S. And we spent, I lived here. My parents, we've been here for the last 40 years.
And in order to leave Vietnam, you guys got on a boat.
Yeah, so that's right. We, I guess, during the war, there's a lot of successful businessmen, my dad being one, had to find ways to leave communism, and I think it's very well been documented. There's been a lot of sort of people where you're seeing sort of similar to right now with a lot of Syrians and a lot of what's going on in the Middle East, people leaving, escaping war. That was the same for our family and a lot of family back then.
So your father had to give up basically everything he had built in Vietnam.
That's correct. That's correct.
And
it was hard for him.
To give you opportunity, you and your family opportunity in the United States.
That's right.
And that's such a great story. Where did you go to school? How did you educate?
So we came here and we lived in Glendale. We grew up in Glendale. I went to school, elementary school, middle school, and high school in Glendale. And then I ended up going to university just down the street, UC Irvine.
UC Irvine.
Yep.
Okay, great. But you spent, you're obviously your upbringing, your schooling. What did you study in school?
I studied economics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm going to go the business route, pretty much. I mean.
Yeah, like a lot of sort of Asian growing up within sort of Asian family, Asian parents expect you to either take on some sort of respectable career like a doctor or a lawyer.
To get a job.
Right, and then, but I didn't think I've always had an interest in business. I think growing up, I sort of like Alex P. Keaton, where I grew up, and every time the newspaper would come, I'd be reading the business section of the newspaper. So I was very intrigued by business, by stock market, by Wall Street. So when I came to Irvine, UC Irvine for school, I decided to major in economics because that was my interest.
So post UC Irvine, I understood that you spent a large majority of your career, though, back in Asia. So after you brought your family here, you got your education. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. I have 2 older brothers.
Okay.
And a younger sister.
Okay.
So we have a sizable family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But after growing up here in Southern California and then going to UCI, you decided to kind of pursue a career in Asia.
Yeah, so that wasn't something that just where I graduated and took off and went to Asia. In the back of my mind, I had an interest. I was interested in somehow getting some international experience, but I ended up working at Deloitte & Touche, one of the big 4 accounting consulting firm, for 3 years in LA. And 3 years into that job, there was an opportunity for a position in our Hong Kong office, and that's where I put my hand up and said, hey, I'd love to take on that role and go there for a year and a half to help out with the Hong Kong office for this particular practice that we were starting, or Deloitte and the accounting world was just starting to offer. And that's how I ended up in Asia back then, and that was 1997, so that was 20 years ago, and the intent was just to be there for a year and a half, as I said, and it turned out to be 18 years.
And by the way, that's 1997 was what, 7 years before Facebook was even around. So this is at the early stages of .com sort of blowing up and so on and so forth. So you kind of followed that evolution of the internet, kind of, especially in Asia, markets in Asia.
Yeah, well, the internet didn't really come about, as most people know of it, until 1994, 95, actually, when the first browser came out, Mosaic. But my sort of exposure to the internet started even much earlier than that. It was while I was in school at UC Irvine. I think it was 1991 or 92. I took a course. It was called the Global Communication in the Internet. And I don't know if you remember back then, it was really just a dark screen with a little tick DOS prompt, and that's how for you to sort of use the internet, you have to type in commands.
That's right? Crazy.
And I was that's when I first got exposure to the internet, where we were learning some of the what are some of the ways of using the internet. And I think back then, there was search, but it was called Veronica for whatever reason. Chat was called IRC, Internet Relay Chat. And so I got exposed to, and I was in awe by it from using IRC, chatting with somebody, I think it was in the Philippines. And I was so in awe by that I've continued to follow the development of the internet. And in 94, 95, when Mosaic came out, I was super happy that now you get these graphical interface and you can actually use it much easier. But also I think back then, I kid you not, I tell the stories to a lot of people. It's amazing how the domain, the URL of a web page hasn't changed at all.
No,
Kevin,
it's
right?
still HTTP.
It's
right?
It's the same, right?
And what does that even mean?
Hyperlink. But I kid you not, back then when I saw that in order to pull up a page, you need to remember a hyperlink, which is really long.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if there was somebody created a directory where we can just go to that and click on that and then navigate to different places.
Yahoo.
So Yahoo came out.
There you go.
And I was one of the early users of Yahoo, and I have this domain email address that is, it's hard to get in terms of my name, having that domain free email address. So yeah, it's a true story that I thought about that, and then it happened. I was super happy, but looking back, I wish I was the one that created it.
You wish you would have started Yahoo. And so you stayed the internet path, and then you ended up working for some of the bigger. Let's start first about what you created in Shanghai, in Hong Kong.
Yeah. So I didn't really stay the internet path. I had an interest and passion for it. And I ended up working for Deloitte and staying in the corporate world. But I've always used and thought of the internet as a tool to use for the work, because I think the job that I went into was a lot around research. So my boss back then was a PhD economist, and my job back then in the role I was at Deloitte was a lot of research on data and doing modeling. So I proposed to the boss back then that, hey, there's this new tool, a lot of information out there, we can use this to do research. And I continued to use, kept an eye on the internet, and then see how a lot of great business model came about from the internet with eBay and Amazon, and they went IPO. And so when I ended up in Hong Kong and Asia, I think it was 97, I was still with Deloitte, I felt I missed the boat on the internet growth in the U.S.
Little did you know.
Yeah, and so when the internet wave hit Asia in 97, 98, I decided that, now's the time for me to leave the corporate world and take the risk and do something on my own. So,
So there's your first sort of entrepreneurial spirit sort of growing within you, specifically within, as it applied to the internet, saying, I know there's so much potential here, I got to pursue it.
yeah, I mean, I think the entrepreneurial spirit bug in me, I think, comes from my dad. I think partly, I think he's always been an entrepreneur, so I've gotten his DNA to some respect. And having followed this area for 5 years and lots going on, I felt like, and then when you're young, you're like, hey, you know what, it's okay to take risks. So I left the corporate world.
Was he encouraging you at that time to kind of pursue this path, or did you kind of take it and then he was like, well, that's great, I support you in this?
Yeah, I guess, I don't recall exactly, but certainly my mom discouraged, because moms always take a safe route. So dad
Mine
was.
too, don't worry.
He wasn't proactively supportive in a way that pushing me to go ahead and do it, but he was just like, yeah, he wasn't sort of convincing me not to do it. Was mom was doing that. But I think I took the inspiration from my dad that he did a lot. He's never worked for anyone, and I thought that, hey, if dad can do it, I can do it too.
There you go, father son. So you ended up starting sort of an auction site in Hong Kong.
That's right. So back then, eBay was king of the internet, and there's been a lot of.
Which year is this?
This is in 98.
98,
99,
okay.
99, yeah, 1999. And I, racked my brain trying to think of a great idea to start a company. And I think back then there was no C2C online auction site. E-commerce was in its very early stage. So I thought, hey, let's give this thing a try with trying to bring an eBay here. So we went down the path of creating an eBay clone, if you will, a C2C. But we tweaked it a little bit, because I think every market is different in terms of culture and e-commerce behavior, or just commerce behavior. So we tweaked it a little bit, where it wasn't really C2C rather. It was more B2C to C.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's businesses wanting to sell to consumers who are kind of reselling it, or
Yeah. So we worked. It wasn't really individual going online. And
almost like Amazon store style.
Correct. Yeah. Working with convincing small business going online, and then using a platform like this where you can reach your.
You build them a portal, and then you'll help them reach a bunch of customers. And
That's correct. That's right.
So eventually, this business ended up being.
Well, the business
acquired.
No, it didn't. The .com, the whole world sort of blew up with the .com.
2008.
2000.
2000.
So the first .com burst in 2000. So we launched our startup. I think it was 4 to 5 months before the .com burst. So when it bursted.
Speak about timing, right?
Yeah.
Isn't timing everything?
Timing is everything in life. That was. Well, I have a few stories around that in terms of timing, in terms of what I've been doing. But yeah, that was the first. Not great timing for my first venture into entrepreneurship and startup.
But you didn't give up.
No, well, I did sort of kind of cut my losses and went on, because I think back then it was a tough environment for everyone, and we weren't able to raise any money, and we weren't getting traction, because I think e-commerce was too early for its time in Hong Kong at that time.
How perceptive was Hong Kong investors to the sort of internet applications at that
Very.
time?
Like I said, the wave hit Asia at the time, so there were a lot of startups. A lot of startups started in Hong Kong thinking it's a gateway to a much bigger market, which is China.
Yep.
Right. But I think when the internet burst,
they all
everyone
cut their losses.
Yeah, and it was bad for the whole world. It was especially bad in Hong Kong as well. Recession hit, and I had a choice to make. It was trying to decide whether is it time to go back home or stick around and do something, or go beyond that, right? And that's was when I decided that I wasn't ready to go home. I still had a lot of fire in me. I was still very curious about a lot of things, and I wanted a bigger adventure. And the timing. This is the part where the timing was good, because when I had decided that I'm gonna go to China, because growing up, mom or dad always said, the 21st century is really the dragon century. That the dragon's gonna wake up. It's a China century.
And Shanghai was at the start of its 20-year boom around that time.
China, just as a whole, right? Because China in end of 2001 was when they got approved into WTO. Okay, that was really
That's
what
huge.
spurred the whole growth of China in the last 15, 16 years. And so when I decided to go to China, obviously Shanghai was a city that I wanted to live in because Shanghai is considered the most Western-friendly city, and I had a couple of friends there. So I went to Shanghai, and you know, China had just gone to WTO. People were very, very positive about the future, and so my goal going to Shanghai, China, was really more to learn Mandarin, to learn the language, but at the same time to look for opportunities. So luckily, the timing was good for me on that part too, because eBay had just invested in the largest online auction site in China at the time, called EachNet. They put 30% in. And of course, I'm thinking, ding, ding, right? I have the background in terms of
You sort of had this
understand that.
little thing in Hong Kong, so you're
Yeah, I
familiar
know
with-
the business
I know the
model.
business
I've done
model.
my sort of my own company, and I thought maybe I can go there and sell them because likely they're going to need to recruit lots of talent to support them. At the same time, I'm probably thinking they probably need bilingual, bicultural people to support working with the folks back in
Especially
Silicon
one
Valley.
that's educated in the United States as well.
That's
you
right.
know.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's how I got in terms of that's how I got sort of started my China internet career path, is really honing in on an opportunity and selling myself, pitching and successfully convincing EachNet to hire me, and then within a year joining EachNet as one of the last senior management team member. We got acquired by eBay 100%, and then I stayed on with eBay for the next 4 years and ran internet marketing for them.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was
For
exciting.
all of China.
For all of China, it was. You know, I think a lot of us, know that eBay is no longer in China. Taobao is the king of e-commerce, but I think eBay helped a lot in terms of elevating.
They paved the path.
space.
They
They paved the path for e-commerce, for advertising. We were the biggest advertiser in China. I managed a budget of 20 to 30 million advertising dollar in China. So, needless to say, I was quite popular in terms of myself and the team.
So people are taking you out. You're getting all the advertisers
Yeah,
there.
but more so, I think it was a great learning experience, having sort of
course.
play money,
Almost like
tuition
an
money to learn.
incubator for your own ideas too.
Yeah, it was more just incubator for my ideas, but more just testing, like learning how the market works, how to work with publishers in China, and what how things are different, even though you're buying ads, but consumers and users are different. So we took a lot of best practice in the U.S., but a lot of these may work in China, and some did not work because of the cultural differences. So we learned a lot from that, and I think we helped the market learn a lot too, and the publishers learned a lot, understanding how to be a better, provide the ROI on the media for advertisers who's got big budgets, because we were quite demanding in terms of as an advertiser in China, and they're like, why are you guys asking for all this stuff? Because we're like, that's the direction where a mature market for digital advertising is going to go, and trust us that what we're asking for coming from the U.S., you're going to be eventually going to be facing the same demand from other advertisers.
Yeah. So then you had transitioned to the big behemoth, Google.
Yeah. So eBay did not succeed, and then we sort of got defeated, if you will, by Alibaba, which started out as a B2B business and then ended up creating a C2C, Taobao. And Jack Ma, I think a lot of us know the background on that.
Jack Ma.
Yeah. And so I left eBay in 2007, in mid of 2007, when eBay decided to pull out of China. In terms of the domestic business, they still have an export business in China where they're helping domestic companies selling to consumers in the U.S. So I left, and then my second sort of my entrepreneurial bug,
The second fire came within you.
The itch came, right? And I decided, so I thought about, hey, you know what? I want to do a startup again. And this is in 2007. And I started, observing that two things. It was, I think, Facebook was starting to be like, you know, it hadn't really come out of the university environment yet, but a lot of people knew that it was a big deal, and because it was overtaking Friendster, and I thought, that's an interesting.
Who remembers Friendster?
Yeah, that was a
MySpace,
long time
Friendster,
ago. Yeah, MySpace, Friendster. So social networking site was an interesting idea, and I looked at that model, and then I looked at an area that was quite interesting in my observation living in China was the pet space. Okay, I think in China, a lot of people, there's this one-child policy, where a lot of young professionals were moving to the big cities, and they were, you know, looking for job working, but they were quite lonely. So I saw an opportunity where a lot of them were getting pets, and the market for pet is significant. So I decided that to create a social networking site at Facebook, like just for pets. That was second attempt at.
And what was that called?
It was called Wo Wu Wu. It was sort of Chinese word. Wo Wu Wu was like a Chinese way of pets.
Okay.
And that didn't work out because of, again, the bad timing. As you remember, you mentioned earlier, '08 was the financial crisis crash.
So second crash.
Second crash. Second crash. Second failure.
Also bad timing.
Yeah. Failure is good. As far as startup, you learn from that.
Failure is just a detour, not
It's a
dead
detour.
end.
It's a learning experience.
So you worked a couple years at Google, and then to say fast forward about 7 or 8 years, and now you're ready to sort of leave China.
Yeah.
You were just kind of fed up with China. You had a family now.
Yep.
And you're ready to kind of come back to the States.
Yeah. So I did a startup with that second startup, and then I got pulled back in the corporate world, and then I ended up with Google. It was my last job for 3 years, running DoubleClick for Google China. And then I started a family at the same time, and I told myself at that time that, at some point I'm going to have to come back to the U.S. I knew that. I told myself, once I have a family, I'm going to have to focus family as priority. So in 2015, that was when I decided we're gonna kind of walk away.
So you walked to your wife and you said, "I'm gonna quit my job. We're gonna move, and I'm gonna start another company."
Yeah, I was lucky that Google allowed me to have a period of transition back here. So I didn't really quit China and then quit Google and all that. So I came back, but knowing that it would have been a challenge to stay within Google, being back in the U.S. where I wanted to live in Irvine. That I thought, hey, you know what? I should come up with a plan B, and my startup bug, entrepreneurial bug, came about again, and that's where we are at with Yummi. It was prompted by a desire to do another startup.
So you're here now in OC. You've since 2015, so it's roughly about a year and a half ish. A year and a half ish. Yeah. Year and a half ish. You've built the app.
Yep.
The app is in beta.
It's in what we call open beta, so it's available in the App Store and Google Play. You can download it.
So why the beta strategy? Why would that be something that you thought was right for this project?
Well, I think we're building a consumer app, and I think you don't really know how good it is until you roll it out there and iterate and learn and get feedback.
So you're doing focus groups. You've done a number of focus groups in different colleges and so on to get that feedback from the users.
That's right. So we're always getting user feedback, whether it's focus group, whether it's one-on-one meeting new users, whether it's one-on-one recruiting new users.
Let's take a look at what it looks like. I think we've got it on screen. Travis will go throw it on screen. We've got Yummi. So Pete Wong is going to demonstrate Yummi right here live on Facebook.
Sure.
So Pete, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Yummi is, and then we'll dive into the app.
So Yummi is it's I guess a platform for all things food. We want it to be a one-stop shop for users to be able to do everything, their entire food experience on one app. And what I mean by that food experience is really, when it comes to tracking what you eat, comes to remembering what you eat, comes to sharing what you eat and looking for what you eat. Right? I think a couple of these things, we're currently doing it on different platforms. Like for sharing part, a lot of us use social media, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, you're taking pictures of your food like on Instagram, and then you're filtering it and then throwing it out to your audience.
Exactly, and then waiting to get validation and
Yeah.
get likes, right?
Click, like,
Right.
yeah.
But you pick and choose the ones that you likely think it's going to get validation, right? So there's a lot of, but then that's where I saw the opportunity where not all photos that you capture, not all memories you captured actually are being sort of shared. There's a lot of the contents that people are capturing of food.
They're just taking it and just saving it.
They're taking it and just like not saving it or just leaving it, like I said, yeah, leaving
Or
it
deleting
on your
it
phone
later
or
on.
deleting them, right? And so thinking that they're of no use. And that's where I felt that food being such a large, vast space, that I think it deserves its own platform. And currently a lot of these experiences are done independently on various different multiple platforms. So I thought about, well, there's got to be something that's better. And so what we've developed is really, the way I tell people to make it easy for them to understand is we're creating an Instagram plus Yelp with a layer of food journaling on top. So that part is where we're unique. So we're trying to complement Facebook and Instagram, where, look, you're taking lots of pictures of food with the intent of remembering them.
Yeah.
But can you go to your phone and really quickly
Can you look back in
retrieve
your
and recall?
Instagram feed and pull up a photo you took at a restaurant 12 months ago?
Right, it's difficult.
You got to flip through your whole Instagram feed.
Correct, because Instagram and Facebook, they don't create functions for you to recall these contents easily.
Yeah.
There's no filtering, there's no search.
So show us what you got here. This is the main screen, right?
So this is the feed screen. So if you look at the bottom of the app, it's designed with 4 tabs, just like many of the other social apps. But the way we put the order, we emphasize the importance of the content. So the first screen is, unlike other apps, the first screen isn't the feed. It's actually your log, your diary, your profile, because a lot of it's your content. So we want to say, hey, you use this app first and foremost for yourself. It's not about going on to Yummi, posting on Yummi as if you do it on Instagram and Facebook, and to get some sort of audience reaction and engagement.
It's a utility.
It's a utility, that's right. We're a social utility, we're not a social network first. And so this is my sort of my diary.
So these are all the ones
experience.
that you've taken and posted
Correct.
to Yummi.
Right. But it's not just posting it on there and say, hey, you know what, why bother, because you already have this on the phone. It's more, we build functions for you to recall this, right?
So you can have a calendar. You can
have a calendar. So
and
it's organized where you can actually easily, by date, by
month.
time, by month. And this is, so it's very important. It auto-organizes for you with the information within the photo.
The metadata of the
metadata of the dates. So when you're uploading your content, our app are able to organize your content in a way based on the timeline of when you actually have the meal. Okay. And not when you create the post.
Sure.
And then the key feature for our app is really near me. So we're right now
in Irvine.
Yeah. Lake Forest, it says here, close to Lake Forest.
So there's a Pepino's right down the street.
Right. So apparently I've eaten around here, and I didn't realize that I'd eaten around here. Right. So I have currently 600. We call our post footprints, because they're tagged to a location and cuisine. So I'm like, okay, well, I want to remember.
Footprints, kind of like footprints, right? Yeah.
Well, it's food, right? Yeah, exactly. So as you're posting to this, you're leaving footprints onto the app, and wherever you go, you use the app to recall your food experience there, and you don't have to go into your phone to scroll, trying to find that content.
So what if I want to find a restaurant in a new city that I've never been in?
Okay, so let's say, so that's where the feed is. So the feed is just like, it's essentially a social graph where you follow people that you know or follow people that you want to.
I got a food blogger I like, and I like their style of eating, and I want to follow them.
Correct. And this is another way of looking for food through a trusted network, we call it, instead of through ratings and reviews from strangers.
I don't know anyone. There's people at Yelp. I don't know who they are.
Right.
Yeah.
So for this, we're on the feed screen, and if you want to, let's say I'm like, okay, let's grab something after the show, but I don't really know what to do, where to go, and let's see who I follow has eaten around here. So we press near me, and every single footprint, and it could be thousands of them because I follow 500 foodies.
Yep.
Right. Every single one of the posts or footprints actually gets sorted automatically and show it nearest to me based on location. So you can see Central Collective is actually nearby here.
Wow.
And I know who's been there. That I follow
and I can
Alfred, Anita, Grant, and then go on and on. And so
What
it's
if I
based
want
on
to go to a
location.
new city I've never been to?
So
And
that's
I don't know anybody.
That's a great
necessarily in the
question.
city?
So that's the third screen. So the first screen is your content, the second is your friends, people you
Okay.
know, and the third is explore. So the focus on our app is always on near me.
Right.
Right.
Wherever's closest to me.
Whatever
I need
content's
something to
closest
eat
you.
tonight, and
Right.
I don't want to travel to Las Vegas.
Right. So it defaults. So this is actually your explore content where
Okay.
the community of foodies that's eating around here have posted, and it defaults to showing you contents around this area. And that's essentially the core of the app is focusing on a home for all your food photos and a way to recall.
What if I don't want someone to see my food prints that I've logged?
That's a great question because I think we're pushing it as a diary, right?
Yep.
Sometimes people may not want to show stuff that they didn't feel pretty or enticing. So we've
cook something at home. I don't want someone to see that
correct
particular recipe.
Right, and that's why a lot of people don't use Facebook and Instagram posting pictures on there. So that's actually a great point because we see an opportunity to build something that's inclusive of those type of users. So all we did was we added a feature where you can toggle the post, private or public. And this is very unique to our app.
By each individual post?
By post and not by just the account. So you can instantly, in real time, able to turn on or off the post that you choose to show to.
Well, I'm sold. So you're in this beta stage. It's available on the App Store and Google Play now. What's been sort of the biggest challenge to date? I mean, how did you get from a year and a half ago to today? You've invested
long hours,
a lot of your own time. You've spent whose money to develop this?
My own money.
Your own money.
Yeah.
So you put personal investment, personal time. You've convinced your family that this is the way that you're going to pay for your future, pave your own future, so to speak, your family's future. How have they felt about that?
Very supportive. I think anything you do, you have to have a very supportive wife. Like you said, I'm spending my own money. I don't have any income, and my wife is really supportive. Without her support, I don't think I'd be able to get where I am.
So thank you, Mrs. Wong. Thank you very much.
But I think in the day, with any founders or any company, you have to be extremely passionate about the idea. You have to believe that you're building something that's going to make an impact. It's going to succeed,
and you have to be willing to accept failure because you've failed twice.
Right.
This is the third one. You feel probably it's going to be a big success.
Right. And honestly, it's very cliche. You hear a lot about how it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. Just do it. I think that through that, you're going to learn. It's true. I really learned that. The first two times I've learned a lot. I'm able to do this one, but also, even though this may not succeed, I grow.
Yeah.
Right. I learn a lot about myself, and then from there,
developed your own entrepreneurial spirit, your own entrepreneurial
personal growth too, and also skill set. And so even though this failed, I'm much more knowledgeable in many things, and I think you grow as a person, in many ways in terms of different areas of qualities that you didn't think you were strong on. And you grow in skill set that I think that would take you beyond not just maybe building another startup or joining a company that they acknowledge that this is an amazing thing you've done. So I encourage people that when they have a passion for something, go for it. Don't worry about the failure. I think through that process you do build, you do learn yourself, but you gain a lot of experience. Those experience are actually very valuable. That you think just because you failed financially, it's a failure. But you gain a lot back in experience that will be valuable from other people that may hire you one day.
Well, this is 30 minutes in 3 minutes. Is how it felt.
Yeah,
right?
I know it went by so fast, Kevin.
We took 7 more minutes of your time. I hope it was worth it. You've learned about Pete Wong's experience developing this new technology app, social utility called Yummi. Please download it on the Google Play App Store today. You can start logging your food prints. I really want to thank you, Pete, for being our first guest on MyStartup.Live. I'm in startup mode, you're in startup mode, and we're going to be successful together. So please tune in, keep liking the show. Comments, we will answer after the show. We didn't take any comments this show, but we're going to integrate them in the future. So please stay tuned. 4 o'clock on Fridays, we'll be interviewing CEOs and startup every week. And this is Pete Wong from Yummi.
Thank you, Kevin. It's going to be a great show.
Thanks so much.